Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Dr. Lisa Love, and this is the video on the 10 evolutionary groups, how humans evolve as understood by a woman named Alice Bailey, and this is the introductory video. So what are these 10 evolutionary groups? Well, in general, they're divisions attempting to show how humans progress from their baser animal instincts, where they are focused mainly on surviving and procreating, to the point where they know who they are as spiritual beings and live accordingly. Now, according to Alice Bailey, humans of all 10 groups are said to exist among us today. The shift from one evolutionary group to another depends on the focus of one's consciousness, which is often determined by the spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical focus of one's life. As we go through these 10 groups, you can kind of get a sense of where you're at by noticing what your contents of consciousness are. What is it you're focused on throughout your day, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically? That's going to tell you a lot. So if you remember the previous video, we had 3 main stages in this course. They were becoming human as the integrated personality, what Bailey calls it, on the path of individuation. And when we correlate that to her 10 evolutionary groups, that is comprised of groups 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then we have becoming soul. Those are my words: becoming human, becoming soul, becoming spirit, based on the book that I did, these 3 different books of those 3 titles. Bailey's becoming soul, she would call the soul the ego, and that's important to understand because her use of the ego is not at all the same as how we use it today. Today we consider the ego to be selfish. That would be Bailey's integrated personality. Rather, Bailey's ego, which was used back at that time in theosophical circles about 100, 150 years ago, was equivalent to soul. It was actually a spiritual term. So this is Bailey's path of initiation, where you become the soul-infused personality, and that would consist of groups 7 and 8. Then we have my words from my book, Becoming Spirit, where we are now becoming the monad. We're on the path of identification, and that would be her groups 9 and 10. Here we have the chart by Alice Bailey. I'm going to bring up the laser pointer here. This particular one is the chart of her model in her books. We've gone through that in another video. If you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to check out that video. And here is a chart that I put together, and that's also in the previous video describing her different 7 levels. In general, as a reminder, I made up these colors. These do not come from the Bailey books. Actually, she does have some colors, but I did not do the research to get these exactly so, in part because I wanted these colors to follow the color spectrum and also the chakra levels. And you'll see in a moment why that's important on this particular slide. So here we have the integrated personality or path of individuation, groups 1 through 6. And I see them primarily on the Kama-Manas emotional plane. They are on the physical and the emotional planes. Now, you will notice if you're a Bailey student that the line of the personality goes all the way up here, midway into the mental plane. Follow this dotted line across here. And yet I have put groups 1 through 6 primarily on the emotional and physical planes. I will describe why in later videos, but that is how I see it. Then we have the soul-infused personality, which includes the soul right here, the egoic lotus, the causal body, the soul. And it includes the top part of the personality on the mental plane. That's groups 7 and 8. And I'll explain more later why I feel that that's important in different videos throughout this course. And then we have the groups 9, 10, the monad path of identification. And again, that follows through primarily the spiritual triad. Now, why don't I keep going? Well, first of all, because Bailey only has 10 groups. And second, as we get up to this monadic plane and the divine plane or the plane of Adi, we're not talking about human beings at this level. We're talking about having evolved beyond the human form. And so that is why Bailey doesn't talk about more groups at that stage of human development, because we're not human. Now I'd like to add in the evolutionary names. And one of the ways that I started to really get a better sense of Bailey's 10 groups is by doing correlations, both to her egoic lotus, that's going to be in a separate video, to her evolutionary names. We're going to learn those more in separate videos. We're just getting an overview here. And basically the names are Lemurian, groups 1 and 2. Group 3 is Lemurian to Atlantean. Groups 4 and 5 is Atlantean. Group 6 is Aryan and her aspirant. Then we get into becoming soul, ego, the path of initiation, groups 7 and 8, which are all of her discipleship names: probationary disciple, accepting disciple, pledged disciple, accepted disciple. And then we have becoming spirit, groups 9 and 10, which are her initiate names: probationary, initiate, initiated disciples, and initiate. One of the things I really hope that my videos are helping you with, if you're a follower of Bailey's model, is that you'll be a lot less confused, because I have spent many, many years attempting to do these correlations for you as we go throughout this course. And that'll make it more simple for you. And that's also how I've been able to come up with such an in-depth understanding of these 10 groups, is through the correlations. Now, you'll notice this little chutes and ladders game here. This is important because this is how I see, which I'll explain in the next slide some more, we go through these 10 groups in the evolutionary process of development from human to divine. We don't do it in this kind of step-by-step way that you see here, where we're going to go steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the physical plane, steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the emotional plane, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the mental plane, and so forth. That's not really how it works, and that's not even how Bailey says it works. We also don't go through it in a spiral. A lot of people want to talk about an evolutionary spiral. Rather, when we get to Bailey's model, we're going to once again play a up and down kind of process. She calls these gaps, or cleavages is her word. I like the word gap better. These are gaps in development, meaning here we have that step ladder approach. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up to where you win the game here. That's not how it works. And this black line is like the spiral, where we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We've completed all the steps of that level. We go up, we complete the next steps of this level. We go up, like we're going up this nice, neat little spiral. That's not how it works either. And that's not how Bailey says it works. And honestly, as I go through it, I really do believe, as I've observed other people and observed my own life, that the Bailey model is correct. We go up and down. So we may think that we're really great. Let's move us all the way to step 4. And we took a sudden jump up to step 5. And then all of a sudden, we are moving across, we're in group 5, we think we're doing great in this developmental stage, and we hit this. And suddenly we've hit a cleavage, a gap in our development. In modern day psychology, they would call that shadow work. I don't really care for that word, shadow work. I really like the word gaps better, or cleavages from Alice Bailey, but I like the words gaps. We didn't complete all the steps. There was a break in our development. And so suddenly we went down this chute, and we're on doing group 3 work instead of group 5 where we thought we were at. Now this is kind of funny. I always remember, follow the red dot, how excited I was as a kid when you got to this ladder, because you would go way, way, way up. It's like I go from group 3 all the way to group 9. You could say I've had this amazing Kundalini experience. I am so enlightened. Woohoo! And then if we follow the chutes and ladders game, just a few steps later along that group 9 level, you hit this big chute. And the next thing you know, you're down in group 3 doing some makeup work. You have to continue to go through the steps and complete all the stages in the right way before you can finally stop going up and down and up and down in this game. Notice they put one more. They were mean, whoever created this chutes and ladders game. One more just before you hit the finish line, and you get to go down a couple more levels again. But then, if you were lucky, you got to go 1-2 steps this way and finish all of a sudden. Anyway, it was a fun game. I recommend it for your kids. So here is another way that we can look at these 10 evolutionary groups. And this is one reason why I did the color chart outside of imitating spiral dynamics and integral, is because I wanted to create these little dot people. Now my idea here is I want you to just kind of look at this person in figure 1. And in general, what colors are most dominant? They're primarily green and blue. So we kind of come over here, and where's green and blue? It's Boudic and Atmic planes. In other words, this is somebody who is on the path of identification, leading towards monadic consciousness, working through the spiritual triad, and in groups 9 and 10. Compare that to figure 2 over here. What do you see primarily? I would say a lot of orange, a lot of red. So that person is primarily down here. So that person would be on the path of individuation, where they're becoming an integrated personality. And that would be probably, this person is groups 3, 4, and 5, which we'll learn in future videos, is where the majority of humanity is at, says Alice Bailey. So this is a basic overview, and I hope it gives you an understanding as we go forward in future videos, going through her 10 evolutionary groups in a lot more detail. So there it is. Thanks for joining me in this particular class. I'll see you next time.